I've got the spores, the sickness. There's the twins in my brain.
The UCI Cyclocross World Cup is heading towards Ireland, and guess what? Dublin is one of Cameron Mason's favorite races. After being part of our very first Cross is Boss podcast episode, the rider of Cyclocross Reds is back, and so is my domestique Dieter. Welcome, Dieter.
Thank you.
How happy are you to have Cameron Mason on the podcast again?
Yeah, very happy. Last time it was just before the two races where I did very, very well in. And to have a talk about those races and other races who are coming again with him is pretty amazing.
Were you rooting a little harder for him after he joined the first episode?
To be honest, yes.
Yeah, you need to say yes.
Yeah, he was a very friendly guy. So yeah, I was rooting for him, definitely.
Welcome back, Cameron. How are you?
All good, yeah. Thanks for having me again.
You skipped a racing weekend last weekend. How did you spend your time the past 10 days?
So straight after Dendermonde, I flew back to Scotland, and yeah, had 10 days at home training. It seemed like the right time, you know, the intensity of the doubleheader weekend into Koppenberg, into Euros. I did everything, you know, including relay, and I felt, you know, my level is still pretty good in Neil and Dendermonde, but I felt now was a good time to kind of skip that one weekend. And it's amazing how much space just skipping one weekend gives you. It's not just 1 week; it's closer to 2 weeks because of that 10 days. So no, it was productive, all good.
Dieter? But isn't it like a thin line between recovering and training? Because I saw you did a pretty big week in training. Like, how do you cope with that?
Yeah, I think the way that I was feeling, the direction my body was going in is that my form was going down, but my freshness was still there. And so much of my freshness is based on my mental freshness. So if I can kind of increase that, then my body actually can respond pretty well. But the feelings were good in Dendermonde, and it's nice to have a break with nice feelings, because I don't feel like there's much work to be done really. It's just to continue to build the foundations for a good cyclocross season. I know I have all the kind of pieces there. It's just working my way through all the kind of details and making sure that I'm ready to go for the next one.
Can I say the fact that you joined our very first episode brought you a lot of luck? Because a 4th place at Koppenbergcross and then afterwards a beautiful 2nd place at the European Championships. We have to say congratulations.
Thank you. No, maybe it was good luck. Yeah.
Last time you said 1 minute efforts suit you really well. Mm-hmm. So you were probably looking forward to the Koppenbergcross?
Yeah. Yeah, like, for example, the climb that goes from the VIP tent all the way up to the finish, there's only a short descent in it. So that type of longer effort, sustained effort suits me. Also just the heaviness of Koppenberg. Anyway, I do think it was more on the heavy side, like the amount of running. I was pretty weak in the running, to be honest. Every time I got off my bike, I just felt dead. And then when I get back on again, I felt dead again. So I actually, my feelings weren't that great. But I think that everyone was probably having a similar feeling. It was hard to feel like really zippy and fast on that course, which is interesting then that for Euros, you actually had to be the opposite. You had to be really kind of quite explosive, I think. And then with the weather changing for Sunday, but I think you saw that all the top guys that were at Koppenberg, they did then just perform just as well, really, in Euros. So I don't think there's a massive connection there between form. Yeah, the best guys need to be at the best races, and I think that was right.
You say your running was pretty weak that day. Is it something you trained more on it afterwards?
I think how good your running feels in a race is just really connected to your form in general. So if you're having a bad day, your running's also going to be bad. If you're having a really good day, your running will feel amazing. So they're quite closely connected. Yeah, we train for it, and I do running most weeks, but normally it's such a small amount that to put more than 30-40 minutes of your week into it is doesn't quite add up, I think. But there are some people that are just naturally good runners, like Joris Nieuwenhuis. I can't think of, like, even Pim Ronhaar, really strong runner, and things just go a bit towards their direction in certain races, but it's small percentages, I think, there.
The course on Koppenberg was pretty muddy. That combined with the climb, was it the hardest race you've done so far this season?
This season. Oh yeah, 100% this season. Yeah. Just, although a lot of it, obviously, you are riding your own pace. I think, for example, in Maasmechelen, like you had to go so deep just to hold the wheels sometimes, because it was Maasmechelen was such a lined out race. It was really hard to pass and really hard to kind of move up to the group, because the finish straight was so short as well. If you came onto the finish straight in a group of 8 or 10, there's no point in easing up. Everything just goes on again. And I think that that relentlessness of pace was shown in Maasmechelen, whereas actually in Koppenberg, the positioning in Koppenberg is pretty simple. Are you good enough to be top 3? No, then there's not much you can do about it. So it was just self-inflicted. You just had to kind of make yourself suffer, which I like doing. So
I saw a small doubt before you answered the question until I said this season.
Yeah.
Is there one race that was so far the hardest one you've ever done?
Most British national championships are really hard, and you finish each one. The last 3 or 4 I've done, you finish them absolutely empty, because the amount of running and just it's the heaviest racing that I think on the cyclocross calendar is normally the British champs. Belgian ones that are hard, it's normally just the context of it, like, have you got an injury, have you started at the back, all that stuff. Dendermonde, I finished totally empty because I did a big catch-up race, but then that was me making myself suffer. So that wasn't necessarily the course, because I enjoyed the course. I like the course of Dendermonde, so it's hard to say whether it's particularly hard like that.
Peter?
With the Koppenberg being so muddy, how much tire pressure did you run?
I think like 1.1 bar, which is like maybe 15 psi, 14 psi. It's basically flat, so you can feel every single cobble as you're going up. Some riders started on different tread just for the first passage, and also different pressures. But one of those riders, Thibaut, kind of paid for it, because the cobbles being so muddy, you actually needed all the grip anyway. On the first passage, there was only maybe 100 meters of clean cobbles, but even then they weren't clean because of all the spectators who were walking down on them. So it was, you just need super low pressures. But I think the type of field of that Koppenberg's in, you didn't need the lowest pressures in the world, because the grass was so long and stuff. I think really low pressures are more suited to that kind of park grass, that really fine, slippery mud, whereas Koppenberg was so heavy that you weren't looking for grip. You were just looking for just more momentum to get through the deep stuff, if that makes sense.
I read that Felipe Orts, in one of the very muddy races, I don't recall which one, but he ran 1.5 bars to cut through the mud, so we could ride on the hard surface underneath the mud. It was a race at the podium, but I don't recall which
Neil.
race it
Must
was.
be Neil, yeah.
And Neil.
Yeah. Neil was a strange one because of how many rocks and curbs and roads and change of surface. Actually, to run higher pressures gives so much more confidence. You have the ability to ride lines that other guys aren't riding. And yeah, in hindsight, probably a lot of guys would have gone higher pressures with just how there was this one section where it was like you are going kind of directly across the road, but with the road comes, road, grass, bike path, grass, walking path, grass, and all of that you're hitting at 90 degrees. And each one of those is just like a 90-degree edge. So stuff like that, yeah, you 100% need to ride higher pressures for. Otherwise, you break wheels and puncture.
Peter, do you recall us climbing the Koppenberg on a domestic social ride? Can you imagine what it feels like to do it on flat tires?
No. I once did it like when it was raining, so they were just wet and not muddy, and I slipped and I didn't reach the top like on bike. So to climb then, while you're so muddy, I really can't comprehend how they get up them on the bike.
We only actually had to do them 5 times because the lap was so long that it took us ages to go around. I think one of the faster Koppenbergs I did, it was like 7 times. So 7 times up Koppenberg, you feel that. But then obviously the rest of the lap is easier. But actually, it felt particularly slow this year. And I think actually I had the wrong gears on my bike. Like I should have had easier gears to push. Yeah, it's just something I hadn't thought about being on Shimano, being with the double ring. I thought the little ring would be small enough anyway, but it wasn't. Like it would have been nicer to just have a slightly smaller cadence. But also then if you put smaller gears on your bike, you also just ride slower, and because you've got a gear to use almost. Like either way, you have got to do the watts to get up the hill. It's just I think I was maybe turning a little bit of a lower cadence than was ideal.
Cameron, after the race in Oudenaarde, you only had 1 day to recover, as on Friday you participated in the mixed relay at the European Championships. How did the legs feel after such a tough race?
When did I travel? I had all of the morning after the race to do a recovery ride when it was starting to get super windy in Belgium.
Right.
So I was already a bit nervous for my flight as well because the storm was coming through. I already knew that the Belgians' train got cancelled and that they were all going by car. So my flight, I was just fingers crossed that it was going to go ahead. So I flew evening, got in quite late, had a lie-in on must have been Friday morning, and then went to the track, did course recon as normal. And it felt like because I kept things moving, there was no chance for my body to go down into a dip. So Friday I felt pretty good actually. The relay lap never feels good because it's such a short, intense effort, like 6-7 minutes. You know, we're trying to be as warmed up as possible, but you spend a few minutes on the fence waiting for your teammate to come around, and then you go start full gas and the body just fills with lactate. So it doesn't feel great. But it's actually quite a nice effort to do. There was things I learned from doing the relay that helped me, I think, on Sunday. And yeah, the funny thing was though, after the relay, I was like full recovery mode because my body was like, starting to feel the effects of the double race weekend into Koppenberg, into relay. And I felt ill already on Saturday. I was like, oh, I'm not feeling great here. I think my body I gave it like a few hours to recover, and it was like, oh yeah, good, right, let's get ill now. So I didn't feel that great, but thankfully it managed to hold off another day so I could do my Euros race really, and then I did get ill after Euros, but it's fine then, isn't it?
Dieter, you had a small question about that recovery?
Yeah, when you have like races that short after each other, do you eat special things? Like, do you take that into account in your what you eat?
Yeah, it's just about filling those requirements. Calories being one of them. You've burned so much energy that you need to replace the calories. Carbohydrates, you need to kind of replenish all those glycogen stores, and then just general protein to repair the muscles. But I find you just got to eat like just regularly, like just anytime you're not doing anything, just to eat, because you've damaged the muscles so much that they're always recovering in the background, and you need to feel that. And especially with travel and with training as well, that's one of the hard things, is getting the good feel in while you have other things in the way. And yeah, in hindsight, you could say, oh, the relay was maybe, it's not necessary for me. It's not going to change my season. So that maybe I could have optimized more then. But I then also think it gave me just enough high end to keep my good form that was obviously there. It just kept it alight for that with one more day. So then it was really there, ready to go on the Sunday. Because maybe other guys who did the Koppenberg, they went down into that dip, and then to get back out of it was more difficult. But who knows?
On Sunday, it was time for the big race at the European Championships. Was probably the race of your life so far. On Instagram, you wrote afterwards, still working out what that race meant and how to feel about it. Did you work it out already?
Yeah, yeah, I've worked it out. I worked out that I was one of the best, if not the best, on the day on that track, which is important for me to work out because, the result is one thing, but then you also have to look deeper than that and realize maybe what could have been possible. And for me, I think the win was possible. There would have, things would have to have gone in a different way, gridding, actually getting a good start, the traffic, and yeah, like we went into that first mud section after I'd had, a less than ideal start. And of course, there are going to be guys who crash because 30, 40 guys have got to get into one technical mud section. So I was kind of the victim of a few crashes, just little things like that. And but literally apart from that, my race was perfect. As soon as that happened and I was in 25th, 30th place, I made no mistakes until I got until the end. So that's kind of how close I was, it feels like. But then of course, I'm just proud of the fact that I could do such a high level race. When it really mattered, because I think I had a performance like that in me. I have had that in me all season, but if I had done it at Overijse, if I had done it in Ridderwater, it would be amazing. But to actually do it at Euros, I realized how big that was, and that was the plan. I was there to do my best at major championships, so it feels good to have executed it to as good as I did on the day.
Dieter?
If you don't even look at your start, which wasn't that great, and you look at the seconds Van Toerenhout gained by the Belgians kind of blocking the roads, and you look at how close you finished, you would have even won the race. I know math in cycling doesn't work like that, but that's a pretty amazing thing to look back at, I think.
Yeah, and until I do actually win the race, it is just potential, and I think it's important to keep it like that. It's nothing more than that until you do it. So it's just chat, but it's nice chat to have in my head, the fact that I was one of the strongest guys on that day, and to see big guys that I've looked up to, in trouble. The fact that I'm going around, I'm battling for a medal with Lars van der Haar, who's like childhood hero that I would watch every weekend on the TV, and it's like white leaders, World Cup leader skin suit on a giant, like those, like really prime Lars van der Haar, and he's still racing at the front of bike races, and I'm the one now battling with him. And I come around the corner and I'm seeing him make mistakes, and I'm putting him on the limit, and I'm putting him in the gutter. Like, that's just dream stuff. So it's all those little moments that are actually, that's way more cool than just a silver medal or any of that. Like, that actually means so much more. And I could have had those, that I could have been saying that even if I got fifth or if I got fourth, that type of thing. It's just a bonus that the result was nice and shiny as well.
The fact that you battled for the win, was that beyond your wildest dreams? Or did you really think before the race, maybe I could be up for the win?
My thoughts after Koppenberg, I think I was chatting to my dad or something, and I was like, I can definitely medal, but I'm in a group of medalists that's maybe actually, there's 6, 7, 8 of us that could medal. And until the morning of the race, I did think that. And then as soon as the rain started coming more and more and more, and we were watching the women's race, and it was just like absolutely hammering it down outside, then there were just guys that were less in contention. That's one less person, just because I know that it would suit me more. And even in recon, I went round with some guys, and I would just like get on the gas out of one corner and just like pedal for it, look behind, and just realize the speed that I was bringing around the track. So I did know it was going to be maybe one of those days. But actually, when we did recon, we were riding on Griffos, and it was almost dry. So how much it changed was actually crazy. Like but it's good that the type of ground and the type of mud, it didn't go to a running race. It just became just one of the most technical races, and you had to be so precise. And it's all those factors that then influenced me doing a good ride like that.
Did that race change the way people look at you as a cyclocross rider?
For some people, yeah, but for most guys, probably most of the guys I race with, it probably doesn't change their view, because I think they also knew kind of what I could do on a day like that. So that's, yeah, the people who knew, and anyone else, they got to just see it in one kind of hour-long program. Like, that's what Cameron Mason can do, and that's nice to get across as well.
Dieter?
I remember the last podcast we recorded that you said that you wanted to get to a point where you barely make mistakes in a race. I think you got pretty close to that point in the European Championships.
Yeah, I think so. Like, once we get the start thing out of the way, then yeah, I was pretty dialed. The ability to immediately be hitting good lines, to immediately to be quite decisive. I think to ride a line and know inside your head that that's the fastest way you can go around the corner, so that the next lap you're not trying a different one that might not work, or you're just already riding on the fastest lines. I think that makes a big difference. And when I watched the race back, it's a shame like they didn't show some of the real key sections. I don't actually think that TV production was very good compared to Belgium. I didn't think. I don't know. There were just some key sections that, as a rider, I was like, oh, you need to be showing this mud section that everyone's making mistakes on, and just where they had the cameras, they were missing that type of thing. And obviously the rain was ridiculous, and they were losing cameras all over the place. But yeah, I think then when I looked at my footage from my YouTube video, I could really see what I was hitting. Right, I was riding around stuff with just my feet clipped in. I was on the gas earlier. I was in the right gear, all that stuff. And that made a big difference on a course like Euros.
1 week later in Dendermonde, you had a lot of bad luck, a few broken spokes right after the start. Can you tell us what happened during that start?
Yeah, so I actually got a good start for once, which is how it goes, isn't it? I was riding pretty well. I was probably 10th or 11th. And I think Nieuwenhuis and Niels van der Putte had some sort of coming together. One rider swerved, that went on to another rider, and by the time it got to me, it was moving quite quickly, and Witze kind of went directly into my front wheel, which none of us could have done anything about, and I think it was his foot and his pedal basically just ripped around the whole of one side of the spokes, so I lost most of the spokes on one side of the wheel, and it immediately started just like going all over the place, and I watch it back, I realized how lucky I was to not crash, because I checked on my Wahoo and we were going like 48 kilometers an hour, full gas sprinting, and that would have been really scary. It was scary, but it would have been worse if I'd actually hit the deck. So I knew quite quickly I wasn't gonna be able to ride the bike to the pits, so I just started running. And it's a shame that the cameras didn't show me running to like put context to the fact that like while the whole race was going on in the front, it was just me running with my bike for like 3 minutes. But funnily enough, by the time I got to the pits, after running for 3 minutes, I'd caught up the back of the field. So I don't know how that works, but I think the like traffic and slowness of the race, actually front to back, that's just how long it takes for the back riders to get to the pits anyway. So yeah, I had a nice run to do, and then I got on with the job.
What does it feel like to be running all by yourself, 3 minutes behind the pack, with all the spectators looking at you and only you?
Yeah.
It must be so weird.
They're all looking at me like, oh, who's this absolute noob? Like, it's just an amateur who's come and joined the World Cup. But no, it was a bit rubbish. But I already was like, well, no need to sprint, because like, what's the rush? Like, just get yourself to the pits. Don't spike your heart rate too much. Like, I was still racing, 100%. I was still racing. There was no part of me that was like, oh, let's just go back to the bus. Yeah, it's a long race, and it's just another thing to add to the story. And there was at no point I was like, I'm not going to get back to the front. I was like, just got to get back to the front now. Like, let's see how quick I can do it, or if it's even possible. So I got to the pits, got my new bike, chopped my glasses off because they'd already steamed up because when you're moving so slowly, it just, and then got on with it, started picking off riders.
They might have been thinking, those spectators during the first round, who the hell is this? But you showed who Cameron Mason is that day. I had the feeling, despite that bad luck, you kind of enjoyed the catch-up game.
Yeah, enjoyed it. It's just like, bittersweet, because I did it so well that it just makes you think what I would have done if I was just immediately at the front already. But I made the most of it, and it's still a good race, and I think it still showed how good I can be. It's just that was a nice opportunity to really be at the front, and I had to do it kind of from the back, but that's how it goes.
At a certain point during the race, they interviewed Christophe Roodhooft, and despite Pim Ronhaar going solo, he still believed you could be up for the win. Did you believe the same thing during your catch-up game?
I don't know if I was thinking that like far ahead. I was just going like very rider by rider, and I would have thought, obviously, if the next rider was Pim to catch, then I would have just gone, like it's possible. But I didn't actually get as close as it was nice for Christophe to say that, but I didn't actually get as close as I maybe would have wanted to, or what he thought was possible. But there's it did look like in that direction, because I was doing the lap times, I was making the groups, everything. And I think when I got onto the group with 2 laps to go, it was at that point that like I went to take a breather, and then I just felt the body not catch up from the effort it did. It's like I hit the red limiter all the way until 2 laps to go. I tried to come off the red limiter just to recover, and I couldn't actually get back to that level, which kind of makes sense. But it's just I had no choice. Like I wouldn't have done it any differently, because if I hadn't gone all in, then I wouldn't have known how close I'd got. I think maybe I could have got 8th or 7th if I'd paced myself, but I don't really care about 8th or 7th in the World Cup, when if I'd just gone all in, then maybe a podium was possible. So podium versus 11th, it makes sense. Like at that point, the result didn't matter. I'd already done the performance that needed to be done, and that's why I kind of went off a cliff a bit at the end, but makes sense.
Dieter?
You were on a pretty insane day, though. I remember the Belgian commentator saying that you came even on the road on the flat part. You came flying by. So
Yeah, I noticed even on the road, like I would get to the road, and obviously you always have to sprint back onto the wheel a little bit out of the corner, and then I would do that, and then immediately I'd feel like I need to get past. So I was riding kind of 4 or 5 kilometers an hour quicker than everyone up the home straight. And especially at a course like Dendermonde, you are like going around a really heavy field, you're like going really slowly on and off the bike. You get to the home straight and you're like, okay, that's nice. And the amount of riders that still do that, even at the front of the race, that was actually, I was like, right, no time to wait. You got to push onto the next group. And then when I got closer to the front, the speed does go higher, and I was like, oof, like it's on now. I need to like maybe get in the wheel a little bit. But then as soon as I would go in the wheel, then I have to remind myself, okay, it's all about track position. You've got to then go move up the group. There's no point in being last man in a group of 4, when actually as soon as you hit the mud, you're going to be 10 seconds apart. You need to be already immediately in first or second position, which is why, like, for example, we came through and it was like Gerben Kuipers, Kevin Kung, one other, and me. And like Kuipers like flicked me through. And like any other race, I'd be like, no way am I pulling through. You've got a teammate in the wheel. You guys go and get on with it. But I was not even racing them. I was actually just trying to get to the front of the race. And it makes sense to just push through. Like there's not actually much tactics when your average speed of the race, like 18 kilometers an hour or whatever it was. So.
And now we are talking about broken things. I wanted to ask you a question about the BOA closure systems, because we saw a lot of them breaking the last couple of weeks. Have you had any problems? And do you think there's a solution for that? Or
I've never had problems with any boas. I had boas on my previous shoes of Specialized, and it's still boa on Shimano, and I've never had problems. I think, yeah, you could just get unlucky. It's like they're just exposed like anything else, and they do quite a lot. Like they're really important. They hold the full foot in. So if they just break a little bit, you really notice, and you need to get the new shoe. But the solution is probably just Velcro, which doesn't sound very fancy, but just shoes that are Velcro. But when we're running around so much, like it is a fact that they're not going to feel as secure. Like boas just feel amazing because you're just locked in. But I don't think there's a massive solution there. Some like ugly kind of boa guard or something. I don't think that's gonna happen anytime soon.
After 2 weeks of not saying a rest, but without racing, you'll be back this Sunday in Dublin. The fact that you're in Scotland right now means that you'll skip the X2O in Kortrijk?
No, I'm doing the X2O. Yeah.
You're doing it?
Yeah.
So that means going back to Belgium and then the same evening back to Ireland?
Yeah. But Ireland is quite far away from Edinburgh, so the travel to Ireland would be a full day of travel anyway. So I do travel back to Belgium to Kortrijk, and then immediately after the race, I fly to Dublin, ready for the World Cup on Sunday. So logistically, it's hard work, but we're doing it for a reason because I think it'll pay off. So,
Dieter, you had a few questions about that race in Kortrijk?
You are fourth in the standings after the race, which always has the biggest time difference. So will you make a goal of the X2O classification?
Yeah. I mean, we've only done one, but the fact that I'm doing Kortrijk shows that I want to stay up there for a little bit. Thibaut's going to miss it. So that's one less rider. But February's a long way away, so lots of things can happen. But it's important, these are the races that matter. So it'll be good. It's nice to have that little kind of side goal of a classification. It adds an extra little bit of motivation to it. And I think racing for time does suit me. I'm a rider that never gives up until the end. Even if my position is fourth place, that might only be 10 seconds back or 50 or 20 seconds back. So I'll be racing for position and for time, obviously, on Saturday, which is nice opportunity to get another race. And I think also like the context of me skipping a weekend, then coming back maybe somewhat fresher or with less race days, it makes sense to use that skipped weekend to then kind of double down and do a double header weekend. Whereas other riders, especially if you did the double header last weekend, the idea of doing another one with even more complicated logistics, it makes sense. I do that double weekend.
Dieter, before this episode, you told me Kortrijk is one of your favorite races in the season. That was a big surprise to me. Tell me, what does it make so special?
I don't know. I just find it a very fun course to watch. And a lot of people don't like the fast courses who look a bit like a road course. But I always like them. And I also like the finish, like on the bridge there. Would love to see a sprint there Saturday. So who knows?
Cameron won't agree. Solo win.
That would be nice. More time in the standings in that case.
Tell us, Cameron, about Sunday. How much are you looking forward to race in Dublin?
It's gonna be really good. Yeah, it's a nice race. The course is pretty similar to last year. It's muddy, I hear, and good fans, good race, and it's just got that different atmosphere. Like, I'm a bit sad I missed the Trial World Cup because, French fans are just insane. They love it. And it's nice racing cyclocross in different countries because they just bring a different atmosphere to it. Dublin's going to be one of those. It'll be good.
Maybe you'll get a new opportunity in Flamanville. Don't know if you're going there.
I'm going to skip that weekend as well. So, I'm going to...
Poor French fans.
No, I know. It's a shame because I get messages like on Instagram all the time being like, oh, see you in this. And like, I can't do them all. But that'll be. There's no other French races apart from that. So till next year.
You said the course in Dublin is said to be muddy. What did you hear about the conditions already?
Well, I know it's been raining non-stop in Scotland, and I imagine that Ireland got all that rain too, and Belgium and everywhere else. It's just that time of the year when everything is fully saturated, and yeah, it's just a flat field in Belgium. There's no hillside or anything, so it's definitely gonna be a muddy race. But I don't remember there being much running from last year, which is good for me. I like a muddy race with not too much running, and I think Dublin should be that as well. And I think someone messaged me saying that they were considering putting like wood chips, like wood bark down on some of the course because it was getting already so muddy. So hopefully it doesn't go in the direction of total mudfest running race, but we'll see. I think they moved the sand section onto a hillside, onto those kind of lumps towards the end of the track. And apart from that, it should be pretty similar. It's a very basic cross course, but what's good about Dublin is how wide they have the sections. So the width of a track really is what creates the racing, and that's going to be so different to something like Maasmechelen, where the course was 3 meters wide, but there was actually only one safe line. Whereas Dublin, some of the sections are like 6 meters wide, and it's all the exact same type of grass. And the way that you can just choose your own line, it made such great racing last year with like a front group of whatever it was, 6, 7, 8 riders. And I think that will be similar on Sunday as well.
What are your ambitions for Sunday? Do you hope to be battling for the win, or?
That would be cool, but I think, there's a bit of a question like, how am I going to be after this training block? Because I have given my body quite a lot of fatigue, and like a different level of fatigue to just you get from racing. But I think the plan is to have timed it right, using Kortrijk to kind of get my shape in the right place so that I can optimize Sunday. And we'll just see if I can do a clean race. And I know I've got winning pace. There's just lots of things you've got to do to kind of get to that point where you're in the fight for the win. And I know also that it doesn't just happen immediately from the first lap. It's like it's that wearing down process. So the goal would be to get to those final 2 laps in a place where I can do what I need to do. But we'll see. I'm just excited to get racing because skip one race weekend and it just gives me so much more fire to get back at it, which is exactly what I needed. So
exactly, have fun. Dieter,
who do you think are your main competitors for Sunday?
Pim definitely on that track, really good straight line speed, technical ability, everything. Ellie is a bit he's just a pure racer. He's always going to be in the last few laps. I was so impressed with his ride in Merckx Plus. Just you think you count him out, and then he's got that 2 to go, that 1 to go lap that just jumps him right back up onto the podium, and he can do that every race. He's got that depth where he can knock out the fastest lap of the race, almost a bit like how you see in F1 where just like fastest laps come out of nowhere in the last like 10 minutes of the race. Like that is actually what he does, which is so impressive. And Michael van Turnhout he should really be on the podium. He's had one weekend off to sort out his issues, and with that comes, I think, especially for him because he's been racing so much, I think last weekend will have been a bit of a blessing to just skip it, to decompress and to rebuild and come back stronger for that. So I think those and Thibaut's racing it as well, so he's just deadly on a cross bike. So if he's on one of those days, then everyone knows how good he is. So that'll be a good group of people at the front, I think.
And isn't it a good race for Pidcock to make his comeback in the field? Yeah,
he's not doing it, is he? No.
No, I don't think so. No.
No. Got me worried there. No, I'm joking. It would be a good one. But they're just not ready yet, are they? They got plenty of time. It's mad seeing like Van der Poel's training videos and everything when like it's like 5 weeks until he races. I bet you everyone's nervous about that. Like just if Pidcock goes onto his phone and he sees Mathieu like doing weights and intervals and VO2 max efforts, and it's only October. He must, and he's still in his off season. He must be like, oh no, give us a break. But it's stuff like that. Yeah, it will make the difference. Like he's got his head down. Not really actually for cross, I don't think. Like the training that all these boys are doing, they're not training for cross, they're training for the classics. It's just there happens to be a cross program in the middle of that, which is how they have to do it. You know, they got their priorities right, and they can bring such a good level anyway to the cross that they can make it work, which is impressive.
Both Pidcock and Van Aert already said that they don't expect a lot from the cyclocross season. Does that mean you expect Van der Poel to win most of the races, or what are your expectations about those big guys?
Yeah, I think he'll win most of the races, but they all bring a high enough level that there'll be a bit of a swing. Off days from Van der Poel or really good courses, or days from Wout and Tom. So yeah, I don't think you can count it out as like, oh, it'll be the Van der Poel show, because it's never simple. There's the good thing about cross, it's never simple. Like you saw the head-to-head battles that were ended in punctures or ended in crashes or ended in sprint finishes. I think we'll get all of that again. So yeah, it's gonna be good.
Cameron, can you tell us what the importance of having a World Cup round in Dublin is for cyclocross in general?
Yeah, it's going to be. I just think because it was so good for racers, I think from the organisation, from the track, not from logistics, because it's a fact that racing outside of Belgium is harder logistically for teams. But it wasn't a show event, you know. It wasn't. If we'd gone really far away from Belgium for a course that didn't provide good racing and didn't allow us as bike riders to show off what we could do, that's what's disappointing. And I think that has to be high up on organisers' priorities, is you got to create a bike race for the racers as number one priority. And by doing that, you will create good races for the spectators. And yeah, the race of last year of Dublin, you know, it was helped by Wout having all his issues and coming back and everything like that. But it was one of the most exciting races to watch on the ground and on TV. And that's what organisers should really prioritise, not just, you know, let's race here for the sake of racing here, because that's not organic, is it? You need it. There needs to be organic growth, which has to start with creating bike races for bike racers.
I've got one more question. What does your schedule for the rest of the cyclocross season look like?
Pretty standard, apart from that I'll skip another weekend. So I'll skip the weekend of Boom and Flamanville. Then I'll go on training camp and do Val d'Isole, which I'm really excited about. Val d'Isole is like bucket list race for me, so that'll be cool. And then a pretty normal approach to the Christmas block. I think I'll skip Antwerp World Cup just to give myself a little bit more space for the Christmas block. You know, starting just that little bit later, I think will allow me to be good on those really good days for me. I'm not sure of the actual races in the Christmas block yet, because there's, you know, nothing overlaps, but, you know, learn how is the morning, is the day after, the nighttime race, things like that. There are some decisions to be made. But yeah, no, that it'll be that, and then back home for national champs, and then training camp, and then worlds, and then I'm keen to race in February as well, because there's some nice races there as well. And I'm a real cross rider now, so it's part of the job. So,
Dieter?
Picking on the Val d'Isole thing, did you ever race on snow in your career?
I've ridden on snow a lot as when I was little and mucking about. I think there was one Scottish cyclocross in a park in Glasgow that was just like create like loads of snow, but it wasn't like packed down snow like Val d'Isole is like a ski resort, so I think you ride on like meters deep of snow. So that I don't know what to expect, but that's what's cool.
The domestic team will gather in Hulst for the World Cup, but since you said you're not sure about your Christmas program yet, you probably don't know if you'll be there too.
Nah, Hulst is high up there. It's
all right.
Nice. Yeah, it's a nice race and it's a World Cup, so it's important for me.
You'll definitely see us there then.
Sounds good.
All right, Dieter, do you have any more questions?
That was it.
Okay, that's a wrap for today's episode of Cross is Boss then. Thank you very much for joining us once again, Cameron. And we wish you all the best, as always. And also a big thank you to you, our audience. If you like this episode, consider hitting the like button and subscribing to our account. Bye-bye.
I've got the spots, the sickness. There's the twins in my brain.